Dorim să venim în ajutorul tuturor românilor care doresc mai multe informații despre regimul vizelor în Statele Unite și pentru asta am apelat la unul dintre cei mai buni avocați de imigrări, Sheridan Green. Sheridan Green este un foarte bun avocat și un bun prieten al ARCA TV. Vă vom spune în emisiunile viitoare cum vă puteți asigura că puteți ajunge, vizita sau lucra legal în Statele Unite sau în cazul în care sunteți deja în Statele Unite, cum puteți obține un statut legal. Astăzi, despre viza de turism și câteva alte vize de lucru sau studii.
Hello, my name is Sheridan Green. I'm a U.S. immigration lawyer. My job is to help people get visas in the United States. And I want to talk to you today about U.S. immigration law and what kind of visas there are to visit or work in the United States. The first type of visa I want to talk about is a B visa, also called a visitor visa or a business visa. A B visa allows you to seek entry to the United States either for business or pleasure. Usually it permits a stay of 6 months. While here on a B visa you can visit family and engage in tourism or recreational activities. You can also do certain business activities while on a B visa, like attend a business conference or a meeting. However, you are not authorized to work on this visa, and that sometimes is a confusing distinction. Just as an example, you can engage in business activities, like buying a business or investigating an investment. However, you could not go and work a shift at that business. That is the key distinction. In order to engage in work, you would need some kind of work-authorized visa, such as an H-1B. How do you get a visitor visa? It's pretty simple. You fill out a form online called a DS-160. Once you've done that, it gives you a piece of paper that you can print out and take to the bank where you can make the payment. Then you set up an appointment online at your nearest U.S. consulate. Follow the instructions, attend the interview, and you could have this visa in a couple of weeks. One thing that is important is proving that you have sufficient ties to your home country. For example, if you have a job in Romania, and you could get a letter from your employer saying you are taking vacation but you're coming back, that can be very helpful. The next visa I want to talk about is a student visa, also called an F visa. Student visas allow you to come to the United States to study at a university, and then you can remain on that student visa for as long as you were in school. They typically don't allow you to work, so one of the things you need to be able to prove is that you have enough money to pay for your tuition and living expenses. However, after you get a degree on a student visa, you can work for a year or sometimes more on something called Optional Practical Training, or OPT, which can allow you to get your foot in the door with a company. And then you have to talk that company into filing a work visa for you. How do you get a student visa? You have to communicate directly with a U.S. school, apply for admission, and then they will tell you how to apply for something called an I-20. Once the school gives you your I-20, you can fill out that same form online, the DS-160, set an appointment, and then show your I-20 at your consular interview. The next visa I want to talk about is an H-1B visa. An H-1B is the most popular work visa in the United States. It allows you to stay here for up to 6 years and work for a specific employer. It also allows you, sometimes, to change jobs to another employer. How do you get an H-1B visa? Your employer in the U.S. has to file for this one, and they have to meet certain strict requirements. For example, they are required to pay you a certain minimum salary for the job depending on what it is and where. They also can only apply at a certain time of the year. All H-1B visas have to be filed on April 1st, and you can't start working until the next October 1st. So the timing can be a little restrictive. Also, H-1Bs can only be approved for professional occupations. That means it can't just be any job. It has to be a job that requires a 4-year degree, like a teacher or an engineer or an architect or a financial manager, something like that. The job has to require the degree as a minimum requirement, and you have to actually have the degree to qualify for the visa. If your employer's petition for you is approved, then you set up a visa appointment, just like we talked about before, filling out a DS-160 online, and you take the approval notice with you to the interview and get your visa. The next visa I want to talk about is an L visa. An L visa is an intracompany transferee visa for an executive or a manager of a company. The idea of an L visa is that you have multinational companies, or companies that have one branch in the US and one branch abroad. And the L visa allows the company to transfer a manager or an executive from the company abroad to the US company. So there are a few things you always need to have for an L visa. First, you need to have a division of the company in the US and one outside the US. Second, you need to work at the division of the company outside the US for 1 year at least. Third, the job inside the US needs to be a managerial or an executive position. That almost always means you have to manage employees. The more employees, the better, and the more levels of employees, the better. There is an unusual but useful application of the L1 visa that we call a new office L. In this version, you still have to have the multinational company and you still have to have worked at the company abroad for a year. But in this case, you are coming to the US in order to start the US business. So this can be very useful if you own your own company in Romania. You can come to the US on a new office L visa in order to develop the US company. But be careful, because after a year in the US, you have to prove that you are a manager, which means you need to be supervising employees, as we discussed before. New office Ls are hard to get, and USCIS asks for a lot of evidence, so you have to be prepared to prove that everything is legitimate. How do you apply for an L visa? Well, the US company applies for it here in the United States, and once that petition is approved, you can take the approval notice to the US consulate and get your visa. An L visa gets you up to 7 years of work authorized status in the US, and then you're required to return home for a year before you can apply again. The next visa I want to talk about is a very popular visa called an E-2 visa, or a treaty investor visa. This visa requires you to invest money in a business in the United States. You have to own at least 50% of the business. There is no stated minimum investment amount, but about $100,000 is a good rule of thumb. And the most important thing about an E-2 visa is you have to prove that the money is yours and that you obtained it from lawful activity. So you're required to establish a paper trail of the funds back to its source, whether that be salary from a job in Romania, or money from property that you sold, or dividends from a business that you own. You have to show all the paperwork, all the bank statements and wire transfers showing how you got that money into your US company bank account. How do you apply for an E-2? You can apply directly at the US consulate. Usually, they will have you submit a binder with all of the paperwork and documentation. They will review it, and then they will call you in for an interview. If all goes well, you'll get the visa. It is good for 2 years at a time, and you can file renewals inside the United States. Join me next time on ARCA TV, where we will discuss different types of US visas and different issues you may encounter in applying for a US visa. We will also discuss US permanent residency and how to go about changing from a temporary visa to a permanent visa. If you have questions, feel free to send an email to the address on the screen.